All right, so it's noon here, so we'll get started. I just want to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us today. I'm very glad to have you here for this session as part of Invasive Species Action Month. And before we begin, I'd just like to take a moment for a brief land acknowledgement that the Invasive Species Council of BC does operate across the province, and we are grateful in acknowledging the territories of the Indigenous peoples of BC, where we live and work to maintain those healthy ecosystems for all. And we recognize that these lands are still home to many diverse First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and we express our gratitude to the Indigenous peoples who have stewarded and continue to steward these lands since time immemorial. And on a personal note for me, I'm joining you here today from the unceded territory of the Ktunaxa people, and I'm grateful to be connecting with my own passion for the land and for the opportunity to share that passion with others. Helping people strengthen that connection with the land is one of the most meaningful parts of this work, and I'm very thankful that we can come together in that spirit. Now, Invasive Species Action Month, or ISAM, is a province-wide campaign that happens every May, and this year actually the campaign has expanded nationally. ISAM raises awareness about invasive species and the simple practical steps that we can all take to stop their spread. Invasive species affect ecosystems, economies, cultural practices, and everyday activities. But small changes do make a difference. Everyday decisions matter. And that's the message behind this year's theme, Small Actions, Big Impact. From rinsing off your kayak to planting native species in your yard, the small things you can do to help prevent the spread of invasive species. Across BC, those simple actions then add up to healthier ecosystems, stronger food systems, and communities better equipped to protect what they love. For each week during May, we're highlighting a different theme to those real-life actions, and this week focus is on food security. Invasive species threaten the foundations of our food systems, damaging crops, degrading soil, as well as displacing native plants, which can be important to some Indigenous harvesting and cultural practices. But before we dive into today's presentation, I'd like to say a thank you to Evergreen for supporting knowledge sharing during ISAM, and also want to recognize that free webinars like this are also made possible thanks to support from donors, members, and our other partners. And we'll share a link in the chat where you can learn how to support our work. As for a quick note on today's format, if you're experiencing technical issues, please just use the chat box, and our tech support will do his best to assist you. And if you have a question during the presentation, just type it out in the question and answer box down at the bottom of your screen. And we'll take some time at the end of the presentation to answer any questions. And if we run out of time, we'll share those questions and answers by email afterwards. The presentation itself will be recorded, so it will be available soon on our YouTube channel if you're interested in rewatching it, if you have to step away, or sharing it with your network. Now I'm excited to introduce today's speaker. Dr. Susanna Acheampong is the provincial extension entomologist for the BC Interior with the Ministry of Agriculture, and she supports insect identification, pest management, and grower outreach across the region, working closely with both industry and government partners. Originally from Ghana, she holds a Master of Science and Ph.D. degrees in entomology from the University of Alberta and Washington State University. And she has also conducted a postdoctoral research on aphid biocontrol in both Canada and the US. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Susanna Acheampong.
Thank you for the introduction. I'll go ahead and share my PowerPoint here. Okay. All right. To the laser pointer here. Welcome, everyone, and good afternoon. We will talk about tiny pests and then big problems. These insect pests can be a problem. They come in, they are small, and at times you don't even notice them until the damage is done. I have this slide up here. Invasive insects are responsible for over 1 billion agricultural losses in the US every year. And then coming closer to home, British Columbia farmers and ranchers lose an estimated 50 million each year in crop revenue due to invasive insect pests. So these two statements highlight the importance of these insect pests that come in uninvited and can create a lot of problems. The BC interior, which is the southern BC, is vulnerable to attack by these insect pests. It's a beautiful region. We have a lot of agricultural crops. So if you look at the valley, we have tree fruits. You have nice cherries. We do get our apples. There's a really great grape industry. The wines from the valley are well known. And people don't even think about when you go to the southern part of the valley, we grow a lot of field vegetables. So there's a lot of pepper production. You have tomatoes, you have eggplants, and there are a few greenhouses. So it's quite diverse in the crops that we grow. In the northern part of the valley, it always amazes me that it's almost like a different microclimate. You get up there, there's alfalfa production, there's corn production, and there's a lot of cereal production as well. You have wheat, barley, there's also canola being grown in these areas. I think that's one of my favorite areas to actually visit. It's so peaceful and nice out there. So what are invasive species? These are insects or non-native organisms that spread aggressively. They come into new environments. Normally, when they show up, they leave behind their natural enemies. And if the environment is good, where they are, they take off. They can reproduce very fast. If there's availability of food, they can do very well. And then they become a big problem in the new areas that they have been introduced into. So some of the impacts, these are generalized impacts that you can see. They have reduced crop yields. Normally, if you have a garden, insects are feeding on things, you know your yield is going to be impacted. For farmers, managing these pests, you get increased production costs. And when it comes to trade, it can become a barrier. So if you expect exporting crops into an area that doesn't have the pest, this is a problem. And you have to do all the phytosanitary measures that are needed for that country in order to be able to send your crops into that country. Food security and availability these days, we're talking a lot about food security. If you decrease the yield and we cannot grow these crops, we are going to have issues with the availability of some of these foods. Environmental and ecosystem impacts. There are some of these invasive insects. When they come in, they can displace native insects. Especially if you've seen Asian ladybugs, they come in, they can be a problem. At times they take over and you hardly ever see some of the native ladybugs. Reduce diversification. Most farmers, it's a business. If you're growing crops to feed people, you still have to make a living. So if it's a crop that you are seeing a lot of damage on, you might decide to grow something else instead of what has all these pest issues. I have been with the Ministry of Agriculture since 2008. And during the time that I've been here, I've seen probably about 14 new invasives that have shown up. I've highlighted some of them that are still in the system that have become a problem and are established. There are some that show up and they fizzle out. They no longer, they are there for a couple of years and you don't hear much about them. But there are others that stay around for a while. So what I'm going to do this afternoon, I'm going to highlight some of the pests that have become big issues. I'll give a description of the pests, what they look like, the damage they cause, what growers are doing to manage it, some of the work that has been done. Because when these things show up, it's a collaborative effort to find management strategies and how to deal with them. So the Ministry of Agriculture, we work with industry, we work with researchers, we work with other growers and other collaborators to make sure that we find management solutions for some of these things that show up. The first one I'll talk about is apple clearwing moth. This is a tiny moth. It's called a clearwing because you can see that the wings are clear. They have this yellowish band across them. And normally they are small insects. They look like wasps. They mimic wasps so that other predators will leave them alone. The larvae are cream colored and they take 2 years to mature. So when they are in a tree, you find both small and big larvae. This is the pupal stage, and that will also be around the tree. It was first detected in Coston in 2005. So I started with the ministry in 2008, and it showed up in Kelowna in 2008. I remember the farm that they first found it. The grower took out all the trees in that orchard, trying to prevent the spread of this disease. And it made it into global, national news. The trees were burnt. But unfortunately, the pest had already spread to other areas. So it's still in the system, and growers are trying to, there are management strategies that growers are using to manage this pest. So when you look at the damage, when they are in a tree, they feed beneath the bark of the tree. So you get all these swollen rootstocks, and then as they feed, they poop inside the tree and they bring these out. So you call this frass. You have this sawdusty looking thing. If you dig around in the spring, you see a lot of these. If the orchard, if it's infested and you dig around that, you find the cream colored larvae. So it really impacts the trees and can cause a lot of damage. A lot of work has been done by Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, a research scientist, Dr. Gary Judd, did a lot of the work on apple clearwing moth, trying to find management solutions. He found that they're attracted to grape juice. So grape growers, you can use grape juice and trapping these out, but it's a lot of work. It's time consuming because they have to clear the moths out and also every week top up the grape juice. He finally got around to having a synthetic version of the grape juice for trapping. So that is actually good. And there are other treatments that growers use in managing this pest. We are moving on to the next pest because we have a limited time. But if you have any questions, I just put it in the chat and I'll respond to those. Spotted wing drosophila. Anyone heard of spotted wing drosophila? If you have, just put it in the chat. It's been around for a while now. No one ever thought that a fruit fly can cause so much damage because normally you have fruit flies. Those are the ones that you find around when you have rotten banana, things that are rotten. You see all these tiny fruit flies flying around. They normally don't cause damage. But this one came in. It's called spotted wing drosophila because the males have a spot each on the outer edge of the wing. You can see that. The females do not have the wings, the spots on the wings, but the ovipositor, which is the egg-laying device, is modified. It looks like it looks like a saw. So the female can saw through fruit when it's about to ripen, lay their eggs inside the fruit, and you get all these maggoty fruit that is very difficult to sell. So it's a very, very serious pest. And it's been in BC since 2009. Some of the damage that it goes on, you can see on cherries, peaches, you have berries, and this is hardy kiwi. If a homeowner dropped off these hardy kiwis for me years ago when we had the issue and I couldn't believe it. It was just riddled with these maggots. It attacks stone fruit and berries. Serious yield losses reported all over the world, and also in some of the estimates, 5 million annually just in Oregon and Washington state alone. In BC, you have in Canada estimates of 10 to 40% in yield losses and up to a complete yield loss if nothing is done against this pest, if you have it in a berry farm or in an orchard. The BC cherry industry in 2010 had to really get rid of a lot of fruit because of this pest. So the impact of spotted wing drosophila is quite devastating. A lot of the Ministry of Agriculture, we monitored for years. We monitored for from 2010 to 2017 to give information to farmers on how best to manage this pest. And also for after 2017, we've had enough information for growers to be able to monitor. So currently, growers are dealing with this pest. There are years that you have low populations, you can have 5 populations in other years. So growers still need to monitor to figure out if it's going to be a bad year or a year that they don't have to worry about this pest. There are management recommendations, cultural and chemical control measures are used to manage this pest, and apple cider vinegar is the bait that is used to monitor spotted wing drosophila. For homeowners, there are a few things that you can do. You can clean and destroy infested or dropped fruit, and sealing the fruit and freezing for at least 2 days before disposal. Harvesting on time, picking often, and then making sure that this fruit is not sitting on your crop if they are overripe, because they serve as sources of infestation. Fruits should be refrigerated. And if you want to compost, don't compost the fruit in all these little home composters that we have, because the temperatures do not get high enough to kill the larvae in our home composters. In the interior, there's a kootenai cover. These are netting that they are really good. You can cover your tree if you have a big tree. They come in different sizes, and people have used them. It works quite well to protect the fruit. Brown marmorated stink bug is one that has shown up, and it's been in BC since 2015. It's a stink bug that has the white band on the antenna. The eggs look like little drums when they are laid at first. They are white, and they are pale green when they are laid at first, but then they turn white. When the nymphs hatch out at first, they look like tiny little ladybugs, but ladybug larvae don't look like that. They rather look like tiny little alligators. But as they get older, you can see the white bands on the older nymphs, and the legs have these white on them. They look as if they are wearing white socks. They are excellent hitchhikers, and that's how they spread. They can spread through different things, containers. If you are vehicles, you can drive them from one place to another. So when they are in an area, they can easily spread without people even noticing that. We have native stink bugs that you may confuse brown marmorated stink bug with, but they look different. We have the rough stink bug, as the name implies. The skin is rough. The shoulder has these serrated edges on them. We do get this smaller stink bug that's called a consper stink bug. They are brownish looking. They don't have any white bands on the antenna, and the shoulder is smooth. Western conifer seed bug, that's one bug that shows up in the fall, and people normally confuse them with brown marmorated stink bug, but they look totally different. They are skinny and slender, and they have this back leg that looks as if they are wearing bell-bottom pants. So that's the distinctive feature with these ones, but they can be a nightmare in the fall when they try to get into homes in some years. Brown marmorated stink bug attacks so many different plant species that's what makes it really a challenging pest to control when it establishes in an area. They feed, you can see the mouth part on this little one here. They feed by piercing whatever they're feeding on and sucking the juices. So you end up with these dead areas on the crop, and that is really not good. There can be a contamination issue in grapes. So for our grape industry, when we detected that in the interior, people were really worried, because you don't want a stink bug stained in wine that you are making. They can be a serious pest nuisance for homeowners. The crop losses that these things can cause can be quite devastating. In 2010, when they showed up in the mid-Atlantic states, the apple industry reported a loss of $37 million. That's a lot of loss for growers. And this picture shows some of the high levels of infestations that you can get when you have high numbers of these. This picture showed that was in the New York Times. And in Italy, that was in 2017. I can't imagine, me even as an entomologist, I don't want to see this in my home. Coming closer to home, this picture was taken in Chilliwack, and the populations were a bit high in 2018. So they can be quite the nuisance for homeowners. Since it showed up, and for the interior, we've been monitoring from 2017 until last year. Luckily for we've seen them in most of our survey areas, but the numbers are very low with the exception of the Kelowna area where they seem to be quite established. Luckily for us, we haven't seen these pests, brown marmorated stingbug in our orchards, in our commercial orchards, so which is real good news. They go on a lot of hosts, and so far we've seen them in more than 27 ornamental hosts that we've recorded brown marmorated stingbugs on in the interior. But there are a few that of these ornamental hosts that they really like. They like Tree of Heaven, Shiny Cotoneaster. Catalpa is one that they really like, and then Mountain Ashir, and then Scarlet Firethorn. So a lot of these trees they like. Natural enemies. There is a wasp, samurai wasp, that really is a good one. It seems when it showed up, it came in with a wasp. So it's been detected in the US and also in Canada, in BC. We've detected the samurai wasp in interior BC as well. So really, really good news because they really attack the eggs of brown marmorated stingbugs. We found other predators in the system that will feed on eggs. You have these red velvet mice, lacewing larvae, and also we have trips that will feed on the eggs of brown marmorated stingbugs. There is this cool wasp that we call Astata wasp, and they will hunt brown marmorated stingbug names and carry the names to feed their young. So it's so cool to see them doing that. So there are a few predators in there, and with all those predators and natural enemies, we are hoping that that will help bring the populations down so that this doesn't become a problem for our commercial farms. We'll move on to a Christmas tree pest. Balsam woolly adelgis is a pest from Europe. It's been down at the coast for a while. It was detected in the interior on a Christmas tree farm in the Okanagan in 2015, and we were supposed to be free of this pest until 2015. It's aphid-like. Usually they cover themselves with all this white fluffy stuff. So the white fluffy stuff have been removed here to show the female, and these are eggs of the balsam woolly adelgis. So they will appear as this woolly white fluff on the back of trees. The problem with this pest is their feeding will cause all these swellings or gouts on the tree. So you can see these swellings and twisted branches, and that is totally not acceptable. I wouldn't want to buy a Christmas tree like that. So the impact is really, really serious. I remember when it showed up, I went to a Christmas tree farm, and the grower is like, well, there goes my money for my trip to Mexico, because he was hoping to sell those trees for his trip for his vacation. And Christmas trees, I didn't know much about them until we worked on that pest, that it takes a while for you to get a tree to the market, about 5 years. So that was a really, really serious concern. And this picture shows some of the white fluff you are seeing all here. That's balsam woolly adelgis later on in the season. The Ministry of Agriculture, we did conduct surveys, help growers deal with that. Where they could take the trees out, they did that, and where they could harvest for the market before the disease and the insect pest or the gouting showed up, all the gouting showed up, they could do that. So they were able to sell some of the trees, but there were some that they had to get rid of in order to save their farms. It's a difficult pest to manage, and it leads to tree decline, and then the increased treatment cost for these farmers. Most of these farmers never used to spray their farms. Some of them didn't even have sprayers to do the spraying. So that was a serious issue for the Christmas tree farmers. Seed bugs. This is not an agricultural pest, but there are some of them. I just want to show the diversity of some of these things when they come in. This is a nuisance pest. It just showed up in Kelowna in 2016. This lady called me. She was just so panicky. I remember because it was just the day they come towards the July 1st weekend. And on my way home, I decided, okay, she lived in my area, so I decided to go visit her to see what was going on. I went there and there were so many of them all over her house. They had firewood that they were running around in. And I had no clue what they were. So I took samples. The following week, we sent those to Ottawa. The identification came back as seed bugs. They are quite distinctive looking. They are tiny insects, about a third of an inch long. And they have this copper marking, like a rectangle on their back. Very distinctive looking. And they feed primarily on elms. So if you have elms around and they are in the area in seasons that is warm and nice, they try to get into buildings in the heat of the summer. So July, August, we get a lot of complaints if it's a bad elm seed season. And then you have the names, they don't have the wings. These pictures I took in my office, and that was 2 years ago. There were so many of them on this ponytail plant. Up to now, I don't know why. I think they were just hiding in the branches. There was no feeding damage or anything on these plants in the office. So a few things that homeowners can do: make sure wherever they are entering the home, you seal those areas. They like firewood, especially if it's wood, make sure you don't have any before any seed bugs in them. Before you bring them indoors. Vacuuming helps. You can vacuum around. There are sticky traps that you can use alongside windows. And then I saw this mouse sticky trap that a chemical company has been using, and it seems to work quite well. Elms, if you have a lot of, in the interior, we do have a lot of these Siberian elms. They are invasive. If you have volunteer ones, just get rid of them. And where practical, you can prune back the trees to reduce the seed set. Elms can set a lot of seeds. The lady that I saw, the first one, they pruned back the elms in order to reduce the seed set for the subsequent years. I took these pictures 2 days ago. The elms around the interior they've set so much seed, and that really worries me. So I'm hoping it's not going to be a bad elm seed bug year. If you look at this picture, I took these pictures and I came back looking at them. I expanded this, and there's this elm seed bug sitting right in the seeds there. Excuse me. So I'm hoping it's not a bad seed bug year. Western corn rootworm is one that I would like to talk about. It's a serious pest of corn. It's been dubbed the billion dollar pest. It's native to North and South America, and it's been present in the States for more than 100 years. BC, down at the coast, it showed up in 2016, so I was hoping it will not ever show up in the interior. Unfortunately, in August of 2023, it was detected in the interior BC. They are very colorful beetles. quite small. They have these markings on the back. So the females will have these 3 marks on the back. That's a male. The black marks are more like a smudge on the back. The larvae will feed, are in the soil, they are cream colored, and they feed on the roots of plants. So the yield losses that this pest causes is very, very substantial in the US. So these are some of the damage to feed on roots of crops. You have these are healthy roots. You can see the damaged roots here. Basically, you have a plant that doesn't have a root system. The feeding can lead to the plants lodging. The plants can look drought stressed as well. They'll feed on leaves. So you have all these beetles on leaves. They'll clip silk from corn, and the pollination cannot at times is very poor. And if you are selling sweet corn for the market, that is a problem. So because you have these cobs that are not filled properly. They will feed on other things as well, on pollen from flowers near cornfields. They seem to like things in the mellow weeds and broadleaf weeds as well, such as pigweed. Last year, we did surveys in interior BC all the way from Creston. We went all the way up to the North Okanagan. And from our surveys, it's widespread in interior BC. We had high numbers recorded, especially in the North Okanagan. And some of the farms, they reported crop damage. Some of the management strategies that have been used down at the coast works well. Crop rotation, we tell farmers if practical, they grow something else to break the cycle because these pests need corn to survive. But it is quite difficult because if a farmer is growing like 100 acres of corn and you're telling them to grow something else, and they have to look at whether they can grow alfalfa or other crops. Early planting were practical, and then there's a use of BT corn that is available that is resistant to the Western corn rootworm that farmers can use, and some chemical controls as well. This map shows the distribution and the numbers caught throughout the interior last year. Western yellow-striped armyworm is one that is native to Western North America. It's never been an issue. These are the caterpillars. They are black, and then they have the yellow stripes. But we did get all these outbreaks in the North Okanagan. 2018, someone called me from the North Okanagan. I had never done any work up there. Went over, saw these caterpillars running around. So we got ready 2099, horrible, horrible outbreak. The damage by these things were unbelievable. They are called armyworms because they can aggregate huge numbers. They move from one crop to another. So they move into a field, they will eat whatever is in their path, and then they move on. So they caused a lot of damage in 2019. The moths look like these brown moths. They fly at night. We use these bucket traps in monitoring for the armyworm moths. And this is one of them here feeding on alfalfa. When they showed up, we had the outbreak. An organic farmer in the North Okanagan reported about 60% income loss due to the crop damage in 2018. Potentially a serious emerging pest because it seems like they are in and out. 2018, 2019, we had the major outbreaks. We haven't had any major outbreaks, but last year we did some trapping. So we found lots of moths in our traps, and there were about a few farms that we saw high numbers of these armyworms in. So it's still a concern for us. They go on a lot of crops. They will go on forage, so alfalfa, canola, corn, lots of vegetables. A lot of homeowners sustained a lot of damage to their gardens. Ornamentals, we had some ornamental flower farms down in the North Okanagan. They had a lot of damage. They like broadweed, weeds. So you have a lot of the broadweed leaves that they will attack. So there's damage to alfalfa. This is canola. As you can see, they've eaten everything. There were not even any pods on there. And then that is some damage to these ornamentals and tomatoes over here. And then pigweed as well. The good thing about this is that there's quite a few natural enemies when you have outbreaks. There's this fly that will lay its eggs on the head of the caterpillars. It's always interesting to see it because the caterpillars are always trying to prevent them laying eggs on their head, so they're moving around. But most of the flies are successful and they're able to lay eggs on the heads. And when the eggs hatch, the larvae develop inside the caterpillar. So invariably it kills the caterpillar. And then we have this virus disease that spreads through the population. So whenever we see the virus disease, we're really happy because it attacks, it goes through the population, it spreads and helps bring the populations down. So when we had the outbreaks in 2019, we saw a lot of these fly parasitoids in there, and then the disease, so then the populations did crash, and so that helped a lot. And you always find a lot of birds. So when you have all these outbreaks, they have a field that they always feeding on all these abundance of caterpillars. There's this bird here with a catch in its mouth. So that is good, that we have all these natural enemies and beneficials in the system that help bring the population down. And then when the populations are really high, there may be the need for chemical control interventions. So I think I'm coming to the end of my talk here, and I'm hoping that we are within time and we've covered most of the things that I wanted to talk about. So to sum up, these pests can be a big problem. They come in all sorts of sizes, shapes, and forms. We've talked about moths. We have talked about apple clearwing moth, and then also western yellowstriped armyworm. We've talked about flies, spotted wing drosophila. We've also talked about a beetle, the western corn rootworm, and even an aphid like pest, the balsam woolly adelgid that attacks Christmas trees, and not forgetting the true bugs, brown marmorated stink bugs, seed bugs. These can be a nuisance for homeowners as well. So all these things come in. There were a lot of them that I wasn't able to talk about due to the time constraints. But what we want you to be on the lookout for some of these things, because if we find them early, at times there may be some preventive measures that can be done to prevent these things from spreading. So if you see anything, please report them. The Invasive Species Council, I know, has a website where you can report invasives. When it comes to the Ministry of Agriculture, if you Google Plant Health BC, it will take you to our website, and you can ask it. There's a lot of information on some of these pests that I talked about. You can report some of these pests as well. I have my contact on this slide here. If you are in the interior, there are any pest issues, you suspect anything, just drop me an email. And if there's anything that you see, I always keep telling people that the first instinct for most people is when they see an insect is to smash it. Please resist that urge. Take a picture. If you want us to find an identification for you, take a picture first before you kill the bug, so that at least we can identify what it is. And if you're able, if it's something that is really odd to you and you're able to grab it, do that. People ask me, how do I grab it? Get a container, put it over if it's possible to do that, and then grab it, or take a good picture so that we can identify and make sure that it's not something that is an invasive, that is not going to be a problem for us. And that's it for me. Thank you so much for your time and your attention. And I hope, Craig, I was able to do this within the time frame.
Yeah, went a bit over, but it's a lot of information that was in there. And yeah, I want to really thank you for that. It just goes to show, especially with the wide range of invasive pests that you highlighted there, that even that they are small, they can have that impact not only on crops, but then how that cascades down to landscapes and communities. So just start with a few questions. You talked
Hmm.
about a lot of those, I guess like the practical takeaway there, don't smash your photo button instead kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, is that kind of the main thing you think that you wish more people knew about the role that they can play in managing invasive insects?
Well, take a picture, make sure you send it, make sure you report it. But at times, on behalf of our farmers, because I know the interior BC, most people love having their cherry tree or you have your apple tree. If you are close to, you are very close to an orchard. If you are close to a commercial orchard, I know we had this issue when we had spotted wing drosophila. Because you have a tree in the backyard, you love having that tree, and it's infested with spotted wing drosophila, you're a problem for the farmer. So if you have that, make sure that you control the pest. If you know you cannot control the pest, please get rid of the tree. Or I talked about the kutni covers. You can get a cover to cover it, or get a pesticide applicator, a commercial pesticide applicator to spray the tree. But I know people were so frustrated when we have this spotted wing Drosophila outbreaks. A lot of homeowners decided, okay, enough is enough. You are not even going to get good fruits anyway. It's migratory fruit, so they took down they cut down their trees. You can always support our farmers. You can buy fruit from them. So if you have a tree, please, and there are pests, if a fruit tree, you're close to an orchard, is manage the pest because definitely it's going to be a problem for a farmer because they don't know any boundaries. The fact that it's in your backyard, these things can fly, so they can become a problem for our farmers. So that's a big appeal from me that please help our farmers and support them. It's a tough business for them. Yeah.
And I think one of the other things that kind of came up in your conversation too was you do support on pest identification. And the one that you showed was with brown marmorated stink bugs
Mhm.
and the cedar bugs. I know that for me, that's one of the things that I often get people talking about for that misidentification.
Mhm.
It's kind of the most, is there a common question or misidentification that you hear from the public?
Well, that's the thing. Identification is very, very important. So we haven't even gone to integrated pest management. The first and for most of even these invasive insects, correct identification. We need to know what we are dealing with. If you misidentify it, you're going to make mistakes managing it. So it's very, very important. And for us, some of the ones that I knew, I don't know. So we work with all these. There are different experts out there. In Ottawa, we have this National Insect Identification Service. So if it's anything new, we send it to them and they get it. If they cannot identify it, it's something from Europe, they send it over to someone in Europe that can identify. So correct identification is very, very important. And I know with the brown marmorated stink bugs, I've received so many pictures of stink bugs that people bring in. And it's good that they bring it in to make sure that it's not brown marmorated stink bug that we are dealing with. So it's always good to bring the pictures, send in the pictures because they all look the same. If you are not, they all look the same, like the skinny one. And like if you have it alone, it's difficult to tell whether is this the one I'm looking for or not. So when in doubt, just take a picture and then send it. Some of them, they don't fly too much. There are some that you get close, they are off, right? But usually it's very, very important that we get things correctly identified because some people would call me and then at times, if I don't have the insect, it's very, very difficult because someone will call me and describe, oh, I saw this insect, it was black, it was this and that. There's no way because there are so many black insects out there. There's no way I can identify that without a picture or without the bug. So at times if it flies away, keep a lookout for it again. If you get a picture, even if it's a little bit of it, maybe we may be able to figure out what it is. So it's very, very important. Identification is very, very important so that we can deal with that. It's the same. Like if you are sick, if the doctors cannot get the right identification for your disease, it's difficult to deal with it, right?
Yeah, I guess yeah. If you get a response of a small, dark-colored bug-like thing with legs, it's difficult to go off that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a last question then to kind of wrap thing up on a personal note. What's kind of the part of your role that gives you the most satisfaction at the end of the day about the work you're doing?
Well, the work I'm doing, it's always so disheartening when you see all the damage that some of these things can cause. So the satisfaction I get is when we collaborate with all the different partners and we find a solution to a pest that is really, really impacting our growers. So it's like we work with all our growers. I know the armyworm, that was one big one that we worked with the community, the growers, making sure that we've came up with practical solutions. So that is satisfying when you can all work together to find solutions to a problem that shows up. So I like that aspect of my work. Practical approaches, finding solutions so that farmers can make a living and save on managing pests. And that has big implications because it's the ecological aspect too. No farmer wants to go spraying things. It's too much work. It's too much energy. It's a lot of cost. So it's really nice when we can all work together and find solutions to some of these problems.
Well, I want to thank you again. It's clear that while invasive insects kind of pose those serious challenges, there still is a lot that each of us can do to kind of make that difference. And I appreciate the work you're doing and the insights and knowledge you're able to share with us and help equip people with that knowledge to take action themselves. And to everyone watching, I want to thank you for being part of Invasive Species Action Month. If you enjoyed today's session and want to help us out to provide more tools and resources, again, there's a link in the chat to tell you more about how you can help support our work. And for the last thing, I just want to thank you again for joining us and hope you'll be able to tune in next week on Monday, May 12th at noon again. We'll be joined by Lauren Bosch from the Cowichan Green community, and she'll be joining us for that week. We're talking about what you need to plant. So she'll be sharing how planting with care makes a big impact and how you can restore habitat and build resilient gardens by being plant wise.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.